Yo, what is up guys? This is RizzyPOW and I'm here with my very first top 5. In this video, I'm going to be going over my top 5 Pokemon in the draft-based league format, like the one I currently am in, the MPL, or other ones such as the UCL and GBA, where we draft a certain amount of Pokemon and then in the following weeks we battle other opponents with these Pokemon. So remember, I know this is probably going to be a very controversial topic, but it is my own opinion, so instead of crucifying me in the comments, tell me why you may disagree with them or leave your own top 5 below. This season in the MPL, I know I may have not had the best draft, but I am the MPL Season 1 champion, so I am familiar with the format. Number 5. At our number 5 slot comes Mega Sableye. Now, I don't believe that stall is very good in this format unless you draft absolutely perfectly, which means that everything would have to go right in the draft, as well as you not getting sniped or anything, which honestly almost never happens. Rarely there is ever a perfect stall team in this format. Almost no one is ever able to draft something like that. So I don't believe that stall is very good in this format. You can make some semi-stall teams, but I just honestly don't think that it is very good because there are stall breakers that almost everybody drafts, at least one, or some sort of wall breaker that can wreck it. It's very easy to prepare for, and such things like Mega Sableye and Gothitelle that work in OU don't do that well at all in this format because it's really easy to prepare for. The best way to run Mega Sableye in this format, I believe, is as a utility mon, such as spreading knockoffs throughout your opponent's team, or Will-O-Wisp, or even having a nice priority to be able to revenge kill stuff like Gengar or Alakazam or some other frail sweepers. It is very bulky and it has magic bounce. It is the best magic bouncer in the game besides for anything in Ubers. Other magic bouncers include Mega Absol, Mega Diancie, and Espeon, which all of them are relatively frail, unlike Mega Sableye. Mega Sableye honestly is the only magic bouncer that can easily be able to switch into most situations and actually be able to bounce hazards off of the field. Because of this, if you do have a Mega Sableye on your team, a lot of people don't even bring hazards because it can easily switch into almost any hazard user and then bounce the hazards away. It really changes the way that your opponent prepares for you. On top of that, it even gets moves such as Recover, it gets Calm Mind, and it only has one weakness as well as 2 immunities, which is amazing for defensive typing. It's only weak to Fairy, and speaking of its typing, it is a Ghost type, which means that it is a spin blocker. This really punishes your opponent if their only form of hazard removal on their team are Pokemon like Forretress, Donphan, or even Tentacruel, because Mega Sableye walls them and they have no way to get rid of hazards unless Mega Sableye goes down, which means you can just hazard stack them and take advantage of these hazards until they are low enough where one of your Pokemon can just win the game. So that is the reason why I put Mega Sableye at number 5. It really changes the way that your opponent plays, and it overall is just a really solid mon in this format. Number 4. Number 4 is going to be Azumarill. This is actually my first round pick in the MPL for Season 2, and it is an incredible wall breaker. It is a Pokemon that is really easy to use and build a team around in this format, and will always be a huge threat to your opponent's team. This is obviously because of Azumarill's huge power ability, which essentially changes its base attack from 50 to 150. It also has an amazing typing, both defensively and offensively. It can switch into a ton of things and hit really hard back. It has powerful stabs, and not many things can switch into that. Now, I know that Azumarill isn't extremely versatile, which is one thing that you really want in a league format, but it honestly does not need anything else. It usually runs 3 sets. It either runs Belly Drum plus Citrus Berry, Bandit Azumarill, or AV Azumarill, and honestly, there's not really much that can benefit you in this format. I could see sometimes running Leftovers might be really good, but besides that, there's not many other sets that are useful. You don't want to run a special Azumarill because its special attack is so low. Although there are Perish Song Whirlpool sets out there, although I do not think those are very good. Overall though, Azumarill is a powerhouse, it's a wall breaker, and your opponent has to prepare a lot for this thing if they do not want to get swept, because they had to prep for Belly Drum, they had to prep for Banded, and it's extremely scary. They cannot allow it to set up a Belly Drum unless they have something like a Venusaur on their team. Besides its stab, it gets moves like Super Power, Knock Off, Power Up Punch, Ice Punch, and you could even run Sub, you could even run Bounce. So this is actually pretty diverse. It has a lot of things it can do, and it honestly does not need any more unless it gets recovery. That's one of the only things that you could ask for. But it is a really easy Pokemon to build around because it can be defensive, it can be offensive, and it could sweep with Belly Drum, has powerful priority. Now in Smogon, Azumarill does have its counters, although in this format you can really work around them, and it only has a few counters that are run a lot in OU to protect other people from Azumarill. Although in this format, those counters can only be drafted once. That means you don't have to face another one of those counters ever again until you beat it once, or you go against it once. Now, there are a couple of them. There are Mega Scizor, Mega Venusaur, Amoonguss, and there's plenty more. And even those, since you're in a league format, you know that they're coming. You can prepare for them. Counters such as Mega Scizor. You could even run something really cool like Natural Gift Fire to be able to counter that. Against Amoonguss, you can run Belly Drum, and Amoonguss is not taking a +6 knockoff. So there are things that you can do for your counters, and the few counters that are there, that's what the rest of your team is there for, to be able to take on those counters. And Azumarill is also very, very bulky. It can be run as AV, and it can take a ton of special hits. You can take some physical hits, and it can switch in really easily to many Pokemon because of its typing. Overall, Azumarill is a really good Pokemon in this format. Number 3. Alright, we got Victini as number 3. What really makes this Pokemon good, though, is its signature move, V-Crate, a 180 base stab that lowers its defenses as well as its speed. But on top of that, it is a fire stab, which is one of the most offensive types in the game. It gets a ton of coverage. It has other physical moves such as its psychic stab, so Zen Headbutt. You could even run Bolt Strike for the water types that V-Crate does not do that much damage to. You can choice ban this thing, you can choice scarf this thing, and since it has 100 base stats across the board, you could even run mixed or fully specially offensive Victini, and it gets Glaciate. It gets a ton of coverage overall, which makes this mon so good. As I said before, it has base 100 stats across the board, which means it is also relatively bulky. You could even run a sub V-Crate Victini. Can really do well once you eliminate any things that stop Victini from just spamming V-Crate. There are a couple of things that do hinder Victini, like its weakness to rocks, as well as extremely easy to pursuit trap, because it loses its defensive and it can be checked by most Pokemon with pursuit. And at that point, then Victini just goes down. Victini can just easily decimate teams, and it is honestly really difficult to prepare for this thing. It can two-shot most of the Pokemon in the metagame, and the few that it can't, it's only going to be facing once, which is one of the reasons that make most of these Pokemon so good in this list. So that is why I put Victini as number 3. Number 2. Mega Gardevoir is going to come at the number 2 slot. Once again, this Pokemon is another huge wall breaker, and it's especially offensive. Its stabs are amazing because Fairy is resisted by poison, and Psychic is able to easily take care of it. Honestly, preparing for this Pokemon is extremely hard unless you have a natural counter. You have to really prepare for this mon. You might have to put an AV on a steel type, or you might have to do something out of the ordinary to just be able to handle this single mon. The Pixelate ability changes any normal type move into a fairy move, so that's why Hyper Voice is able to do so much damage. It also gets a 30% extra boost. And also, Mega Gardevoir is reasonably bulky. It has a lot of good SPDF and can even be run with a bit of utility. It gets stuff like Wish, Will-O-Wisp, and it even gets Calm Mind, so you could run a setup Mega Gardevoir. Besides its 2 stabs, it even gets moves to help it against its counters like Focus Blast, HP Fire, and Shadow Ball. This is a Pokemon that always gets kills no matter what your record is. In Season 4 of the GBA, Magnitude actually had Mega Gardevoir, and he had one of the worst records. He ended up losing pretty much all of his games. He only won a couple, and Mega Gardevoir was actually in the MVP race. It did extremely well for him, and that was just with if he actually played a lot better, it would even gotten more kills, which is what I'm saying. It's a Pokemon that's really easy to make it #1 on the MVP list. Even in my current league right now that I am in, the MPL. In Season 1 of the MPL, Danicki actually drafted Mega Gardevoir, and even though he did not end up with the best record, Mega Gardevoir put in work almost every single game. It got a ton of kills overall and had one of the most kills. I could take many more examples from other leagues, but I'm gonna leave it right here. I haven't been really using much evidence from other leagues for the rest of this top 5, so this is going to be it. But Mega Gardevoir honestly is just a really easy Pokemon to use in this format, and it is extremely terrifying to prepare against. And that is why I put Mega Gardevoir as #2. #1. Alright, we are at the #1 slot, and it is going to be Mega Charizard X. Once again, another huge wall raker. This Pokemon gets a lot of setup as well. It gets Dragon Dance, Swords Dance, it even gets Belly Drum, which is, you can use Belly Drum in some situations if you're going up against a Pokemon. If there, for example, there's a Powder on your opponent's side and you have Megazord X, you might want a Belly Drum on its switch in, and then you can kill it with a Fire Punch or a Flare Blitz. This is a Pokemon that can have counters to all of its regular counters in OU. One of these counters are Azumarill. It gets Thunder Punch. Another counter is stuff like Rhyperior or Tyranitar, and it gets Hidden Power Grass for Rhyperior. You can run something like Focus Blast even. It has a really good special attack as well as its physical attack. It actually has both base 130. The only reason why it's used more physical is because of its Tough Claws. And if you're running special, most people just run Megazord Y. But in a league format, you don't have access to both Charizards. You can only use one. So that is why you could use mixed Charizard X in this format. It honestly is really good. Of course though, this Pokemon does have some weaknesses. It is 4 times weak to rocks before Mega Evolves, and after that it is still takes 25% from rocks, which kind of sucks. But honestly, you just have to make sure you have a way to get rid of rocks. You cannot allow your opponent to get rocks on the field. You could even run some taunt users to prevent that. It is really easy to build a team around this Pokemon, and it can really wreck. There are not many things that actually can completely counter it in this format because it gets so many moves that aren't even used regularly in OU. It also has a ton of natural bulk, and Roost is almost a staple on this Pokemon unless you're running completely offensive. A lot of the time you can even run it with no setup. You could just run Will-O-Wisp, Roost, and Flare Blitz or Fire Punch, and then another stab dragon move like Dragon Claw. Overall, this Pokemon is just really good, and it can actually counter most of its regular counters in this format. It is, once again, super easy to build a team around, and that is why I decided to put it as #1. Alright, this has been my top 5 favorite Pokemon in the draft-based format. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Also, make sure to leave your own top 5 Pokemon in the draft-based format in the comments below. This has been my first top 5, and it was more analytical than most will be because it was opinions based on facts. So I decided to give a little bit of reasoning for it. Tell me how you guys liked it and what approach I should take on my future top 5s. Make sure to stay tuned for the first week of MPL Season 2, which will be uploaded tomorrow. Well, that's going to be it for this one. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.